Federal government calls on investors to deepen collaboration as Airpeace suffered 26 bird strikes in 5 months. Oh boy. Airpeace suffered 26 bird strikes in their aircraft in 5 months. So why are birds, filling up our airports, especially local airports? Why? It means that there are so many bushes that are not being cleared, and that there are also some of those equipment they put in the airport to scare away animals and birds and everything from there, because especially birds and cattle. I remember there was a time cattle had to run into the Port Harcourt International Airport. They had to go chase the cattle away. Okay, so now the question I will have, especially for Kayamo, is who will come and invest in your aviation system where the airports have integrity issues? Because for bird to strike the aircraft, it means that there are site integrity issues, like do you have the right equipment to scare birds and other animals away? Are the bushes around cleared? What is the nature of the airport? All of that put together are questions people will ask to ensure that the airport is not a hazard, but not a hazard to the people. So let's see what Kayamo has more to say. At Lagos, the federal government has called on Nigerian private investors to deepen their collaboration with the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development in order to grow the sector in the country. This is as Airpeace said that it suffered 26 bird strike incidents within a space of 5 months in 2023. Delivering a goodwill message on Tuesday at a webinar on repositioning the aviation sector for revenue generation and growth, the role of the legislation organized by Messrs. Olisa Agbakoba, Legal OAL, Mr. Festus Keyamo, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, said that the federal government was willing to collaborate with investors to develop the sector. Keyamo emphasized that for the sector to actualize its agenda, the government wanted investors to leverage on the immense opportunities in the sector to attract foreign direct investment, FDI, and joint venture partnerships, JVPs. Okay, with heads of international economic organizations, presidents of transnational corporations, and principals of leading privately owned enterprises. So, quoting the data provided by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, Kayamo said that the aviation sector contributed about 170 billion naira, which is 4% to the gross domestic product, GDP, in the first quarter of 2022, while it also supported about 200,000 jobs and pays about 8.5 billion naira in tax annually. Kayamo rather reiterated that the government was committed to upscaling the achievement by latching on the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Kayamo assured that the ministry would continue to play its critical role of effective policy formulation and implementation of the government's programs for the sector by providing aviation infrastructural services and other needs for the sector. So to achieve this mandate, already he said the ministry had developed an aviation road master plan which defined what the government needs to do to achieve its objective. Oh boy, quite a very long story. So however, bird strikes may not damage the engine. In total, it might damage some things that you need to change in the engine. But in all, the most important thing to take away from bird strike is the fact that it grounds your operations immediately because you are not certain if that aircraft is not affected. So you need engine experts to look at the engines. By doing that, the aircraft is grounded and your schedule is disrupted and you would fly. Wow. So this problem of a bird strike on aircraft is something that is very, very terrible. And even though they say it cannot cause a plane to crash, but it can damage the engine now. If feather gets into where they should not go, those hydraulic transmission systems are very sensitive. Okay, those fans or propellers are very sensitive. So those engine fans are very sensitive. So if bed feathers or bed itself, a whole bed, enter where it should not enter the engine will be affected. And it can cause a crash if it's in the mid-air. So what I will say is that it cannot cause a crash. Okay, that is an unsafe condition there. And that is why animals and birds should not be found within the vicinity of an airport for safety reasons. Okay. There are a few comments here. Somebody has said, to cut the long story short, concerning best strike against aircraft, which agency is situated and saddled with the responsibility to chase or checkmate best activities around our airport premises other than the FAAN. Okay, over to you, Mr. Kayabo, to do the needful fast and furious with immediate effect to mitigate further disaster against airline operators. I mean, them not they pay on attacks. Have you asked them? Then they put on attacks. One are going to allow bed they enter, another animals they enter, they disrupt the airport activities. That's not good. So you go do something. Another one is I wonder, I don't understand all this grammar. Instead of speaking on the bed issues on the airspace causing disaster, you want a frog to give you chair when you see him squatting. That is what you know. This is another parable. Frog not sit down for chair, it's always squatting on the ground. So how can you expect a frog that is squatting on the ground to give you chair to sit down? If you get chair, only you go first of all sit down now. So what are you saying? Wow, for parables. So I say listen and hear me well. Many Nigerians, especially diasporans and foreigners, want to invest in Nigeria. All you need to do is to create a conducive environment, and this is not rocket science. It is human driven, and some forms of infrastructure needs good roads, security, and change of minds of government officials to corruption of demanding gratification to before doing their job. Yeah, so government officials demand gratification before they do their job, and that is bribery. A friend once told me that it took 5 years for him, the landlord, to get judgment from the court over a matter of rent with his tenant. And the court cannot even enforce his judgment by compelling the tenant to pay. All this nonsense should be addressed. Holding the mic and calling for investors is rubbish. Exactly. So stop calling for investors, do the needful, and investors will come straight up. Investors will come straight up to you. Okay? So that is it. So Kayabo and federal government are calling for Nigerian investors to come and put their money in the aviation sector to develop it. At the same time, we're having a case of bird strikes. So what I would say, that case of bird strike that's accompanying this message is already negating the message. Because nobody will want to invest in an airport that is not viable, in an airport that is not safe and secured for airliners. So we really need to do the needful, get the infrastructures back in good health, in good state, and then before the businesses will be smooth, all these stories we are hearing about safety and security we should be taken care of, and then you see the airlines will start booming and the investors will come. Especially now that even so many foreign airliners that came to Nigeria to do business cannot take their dollars back to their country. After they have sourced for their own dollar, the government cannot give them their money back to the country. That is not acceptable. And so there are several factors that will not allow people to put money in aviation business in Nigeria. So taking microphone and be calling people around the world to say, come and do business in Nigeria is just a waste of time. Do the needful, and then the business will grow itself by default. So thank you for listening, and let's have a comment.